What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and if you're enjoying the content here on my channel, then make sure you hit the like button and make sure you hit subscribe so you can help decide what direction the content on my channel goes in the foreseeable future. Okay, so I've been sitting here thinking, because everybody's cranking out Watchmen videos right now. Doomsday Clock starts tomorrow, so it doesn't surprise me everybody's doing this. But I've been sitting here thinking for like the last couple, really like the last couple weeks, who can defeat Dr. Manhattan? And I've been thinking about this ever since The Button, right? Because like The Button was the first time that we really seemed to get this full-on display of Dr. Manhattan's powers. If you guys never saw The Button or never read The Button, I've got the video down in the description. I highly suggest you buy it. It's an amazing story. But it was basically this idea where like Reverse Flash Eobard Thawne, the arch nemesis of the Flash Barry Allen, shows up and basically says, hey, look, I've discovered this absolute power and I'm going to tap into it. I'm going to use it for my own and I'm finally going to defeat you, Flash. And then Reverse Flash is totally overwhelmed by the power he comes across, which is basically Dr. Manhattan, and is incinerated in the process. This leads to the whole investigation of The Button, that is to say, the Button of the comedian that showed up in DC Rebirth, issue #1, the one shot that basically kind of reshuffled everything, and that really set us as readers on the path of, oh my God, the Watchmen are in the DC universe. God, dude, I'm so excited about this. So like at that point, it was like, okay, so like if Manhattan was powerful enough to destroy Eobard Thawne, basically a villain that like the Flash has a hard time against, then what does that mean for the other superheroes? So we said, okay, well, there's Superman, there's Wonder Woman, there's a lot of heroes out there that are really, really capable. Most anybody would sit down and say, no way Superman stands a chance against Dr. Manhattan. But it is kind of a cool discussion, a cool debate to have. But this flash forwards, over to like the Oz effect, right? Like we just finished doing the Oz effect, and it's basically where you learn that Mr. Oz, this guy who'd kind of been operating behind the scenes, was Superman's father who'd survived the destruction of Krypton because he'd been yanked away by Dr. Manhattan at the moment that Krypton was going to be destroyed. And then in turn, he was subjected to like the worst aspects of humanity, basically shown all these terrible situations with people and so on and so forth. But eventually, Superman comes to terms with his dad. His dad's about to spill the beans on everything that's going to happen, and Manhattan yanks him, just yanks him away, just takes him away from Superman. And so then you're just kind of like, okay, so Superman tries to push his way through the energy barrier that Dr. Manhattan puts up, and Superman can't get through it. And so it's just like, okay, so like Manhattan is working behind the scenes, moving all these little pieces around and just kind of experimenting with people, whatever it is that's going on. And it's weird because it's like you're trying to figure out what role he plays, but every single step of the way, when the Earth's superheroes encounter him, they can't stop him. They can't even get to him. The energy he puts off is more than they can get past. Maybe the Presence, who's basically the god of the DC universe, the Presence might be able to stand a chance against Dr. Manhattan. I'm not really sure. So okay, so here's the deal. All right, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put the power of Manhattan on display. We're gonna put this power on display and we're gonna answer the question, can anybody defeat him? And the answer is actually gonna surprise the heck out of you guys. So the timeline of DC, all right, the timeline of everything from New 52 in 2011, when DC said, we want you to act like we've never published a story before, all the way up until right now. This timeline followed like this. So Barry Allen was sitting at home one day. I mean, presumably he was sitting at home one day and he's like, you know what? I should save the life of my mom. So Barry Allen races back into the past, stops Reverse Flash from killing his mom. What ends up happening is this creates a chain of events. The chain of events that this creates is a whole new universe. So the main DC universe goes away and it's replaced by the Flashpoint universe. And in the Flashpoint universe, everything bad that can happen has happened. Bruce Wayne was shot by Joe Chill instead of Thomas and Martha Wayne. Martha Wayne became the Joker. Thomas Wayne became Batman, and he was ruthless. Cyborg worked for the federal government. Superman was never discovered by John and Martha Kent. Instead, he was found by the federal government, who kept him in like a room full of red solar radiation, and his powers never emerged. It wasn't until like Flash and everybody discovered him that they basically released him, and he went out and had got the solar radiation, and then came back and was like, okay, now we're ready to fight. Wonder Woman and the Atlanteans were at war with one another. I mean, there were all kinds of things that were going on. It was like the worst case scenario. And in the middle of all this, Reverse Flash shows up and asks Barry Allen, he's like, man, look what you did. It's one of the coolest moments in the whole story. And we find out that Barry Allen didn't remember going back and saving his mom's life. But when he did, he created this whole universe. And so Barry's response is, okay, well then I have to just let my mom die. So Barry Allen goes back and he lets his mom die. Now, this is where Dr. Manhattan steps in. At least I'm presuming this is where Manhattan steps in. We don't know how the Watchmen got into the DC universe. Presumably, it can be done as a result of the events of Flashpoint. that for whatever reason, Dr. Manhattan, the Watchmen, they all showed up there, everybody except for Rorschach, because he died in the first Watchmen comic. Manhattan immediately looked around and was just like, dude, this is crazy. Like Superman? The concept of Superman as a comic book superhero existed in the Watchmen universe because the Watchmen was designed to be the real world in a lot of different ways. And so if Manhattan shows up in the main DC universe and looks around and says, oh my God, Superman's real, I wonder how much control I have here. Well, then when Barry Allen goes back and lets his mom die, where things were supposed to go back to normal, Manhattan steps in and says, nope, now 10 years is gone from everybody's life, nobody remembers who they were before, and they're all basically acting like they're new superheroes for the very first time. To have that kind of power is crazy because you're talking about like reality manipulation, you're talking about altering the minds of people, of all beings everywhere, because remember, when it came to like the whole DC landscape, we're not just talking about Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and the Flash and Green Lantern, we're talking about everything Vertigo, which means like Constantine, Lucifer, Morningstar, The Presence. We're talking about all these things have all had their minds wiped or presumably wiped and basically had 10 years of their lives removed by Manhattan. And so it's just like, okay, this is getting kind of crazy because this is an insane level of power. And if that's the kind of power we're talking about, if we're talking about power that's above the most powerful beings that we've ever seen, then what chance does anybody have to stop him? Well, okay, run over the roster for a second. Batman, nope, I don't care what the Batman fans say. Prep time's not gonna help you here. When it comes to Wonder Woman, not a chance. The Flash, no way. If he's not on land, he can't do anything. The Green Lantern, probably not. He's powerful, but he's not that powerful. The White Lantern of Life, not a chance. How do we know? Because Kyle Rayner as the White Lantern and Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern Corps, tried to bring the White Lanterns back, not only to have Dr. Manhattan keep that from happening, but to in turn break the White Lantern ring of Kyle Rayner. He basically overpowered the White Lantern and shattered his ring and destroyed any chance of the White Lanterns coming back. So okay, that's out the window. Like Superman? No way Superman has a chance going toe-to-toe against Dr. Manhattan. Nowhere near the chance of going against that guy. And so that brings into the equation the question of who has a chance. I mean, those are some of the most powerful beings. Superman is by and large considered to be one of the most powerful beings on Earth, if not the most powerful being. Now there's other characters that we haven't seen yet. Martian Manhunter, Shazam, different things like that. But again, Shazam has always been the equal of Superman. When he was originally created by, Bill Parker and CC Beck, he was designed to be a carbon copy of Superman, except that it was a little kid who shouted Shazam and basically became Superman. He was a backup feature in Justice League and New 52, but he's always been a really, really, really powerful character on par with Superman. And so my argument is this: if Superman can't win, no way Shazam can win. So that asks the question, who do I think could beat Dr. Manhattan? The person, and you guys are so this is going to be a very polarizing response. The person that I think can defeat Dr. Manhattan is a woman by the name of Cameron Chase. Now, I imagine a lot of people are just like, who? Who in the world is Cameron Chase? Unless you're reading Supergirl, you probably have no idea who this girl is. Cameron Chase is just some government crony. She works for the Department of Extra-Normal Operations. There's nothing special about her except for the fact that she can shut down the powers of other people. That's one of the coolest things out there. To me, that's the only way you can win, right? It's the only way you can beat Manhattan, is to basically shut down his powers, and that's it. That's the only way to really stop. I mean, I guess if you had like a time traveler who went all the way into the past of, Dr. Manhattan and stopped him before the whole, electron collider experiment and everything went wrong, and he basically gained his powers, I guess you could do that. But time travel seems like it would be a cheap way to stop him, right? Like DC doesn't really use time travel in that regard. Like that's more of a Marvel thing. And like, who else can you have that will make a compelling story? If you have Superman, who's basically defeated by Dr. Manhattan, Manhattan shows up, the Justice League gets shut down, you have like all these guys just getting wrecked left and right, just bam, 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 bam. And then you just have this lowly DEO agent who comes strolling into the picture, and suddenly Manhattan's powers don't work. He's just a blue naked guy who can't do anything. He's just like a weirdo. Then like, that would be amazing to me, because it would be the change that you never expect. You kind of expect it with like Superman versus Dr. Manhattan, right? I mean, Jeff Johns, a guy who's Jesus in DC, if he comes along and he says, okay, we're gonna craft this story with some measure of realism tied into it, then nobody would really believe that Superman would win. I mean, you would expect him to just keep fighting and fighting and fighting until he more or less just realizes there's nothing he can do. And then maybe it would be like Batman, who would grab Cameron Chase and just be like, yo, we need your help, and just like take her and whisk her over to Manhattan. Because the kicker about Cameron Chase's powers is that they only work when she feels threatened. It's more like a subconscious thing. It's not something that she controls, willingly. It's just kind of something that happens automatically. And so it's kind of cool, because if she's in the vicinity of Manhattan, who's just like wrecking everybody, and she's like, yep, and your powers are gone now. So Superman, do what you want to do. The question is, what happens when his powers come back? That would be the question to ask, because man, that'd be a crazy thing. I mean, if I were Cameron Chase, I would be like, man, look, I'm not going to take the man's powers away, because like when his powers come back, man, he's going to be mad at you. Things are going to be bad. Things are going to be rough for you guys. I don't know. But to me, that's the question I've been asking me. For real or for true, removing Cameron Chase from the equation, I cannot think of a singular person within the realm of DC who would be able to go toe-to-toe against Dr. Manhattan and successfully defeat him. We could speculate. I mean, there are characters like the Spectre, maybe, the Presence, possibly. You know, I mean, there's characters out there where we could kind of maybe think they could just because of their position within the hierarchy of the DC universe, but that's all we have. The only legitimate argument you can make about why the Presence would win against Dr. Manhattan is because, well, he's God in the DC universe, and I mean, you know, nobody's higher than God. I mean, that's true until somebody is. And that's even one of the crazy things, is because, you know, with the Presence, the whole idea behind him is he's sure God in the DC multiverse, but one of the big questions that people ask is the conundrum of like the God of Abraham. Who made him? Where did he come from? And even if you go back and you read like Grant Morrison's whole idea, like the craziness of multiversity, you know, and the whole idea of Final Crisis and the origin of the multiverse and so on and so forth, the Presence was not the being that created the multiverse. We don't know what it was that created the multiverse. The multiverse came into existence. The whole role of the Presence was to basically set life in motion, to begin the process of just moving life in a forward direction so that life would begin evolving and growing. And so then you could turn around and grab the concept of Manhattan and say, well, he's the one that created everything. He's the one that created the DC multiverse, and he created the Presence. I mean, there's so many things that could come out of this, and it's almost mind-boggling because the whole point of DC Rebirth is to basically be a reshuffling, right? New 52 comes along and says, hey, look, we want you to pretend like we've never published a story before. We've never made anything about Superman or the Flash or Green Lantern or Wonder Woman. We want you to treat these characters like they're brand new to the world. DC Rebirth comes back and says, yeah, I mean, do that, except add these few things in. And so again, it's kind of cool in terms of how it works and how it unfolds. But on the concept of Dr. Manhattan, I don't know who can beat him. Maybe you guys do. I mean, granted, I've been reading Marvel Comics for over 20 years. I've been reading DC for like 3. So let me know. Let me know, like those of you guys who are really experienced in DC Comics, let me know what you guys think about like who it is that can beat Manhattan. I'm really curious who it is that you guys can come up with. Aside from Cameron Chase, who can just kind of shut down his powers, I don't know anybody else. And like we even said with her, she can shut down his powers temporarily, but his powers will come back as soon as he's out of her whole little sphere of influence or whatever it is. So, you know, once she's out of the picture, his powers flare back up again. Who's going to be able to defeat him? I don't know. I mean, it's crazy. It's interesting to me. Man, I love this kind of stuff. Let me know. I'm so excited about Doomsday Clock. I am so hyped for Doomsday Clock. I think, man, it's, we saw the ash can when we were at New York Comic Con. We got to go to the press conference thing that like Jeff Johns was putting on. And it was super cool. The whole panel he was hosting where he was answering questions. I was so disappointed because I got up there was a person in front of me. They got their question answered. And then it was like, well, guys, we're out of time. And I'm like, no, I was so disappointed. I was so sad. I was just like, man, I was so close. I was this close to having my question answered by Jeff Johns. I was so sad. But anyway, we've kind of ranted long enough. Let me know what you guys think about who it is that could actually defeat Dr. Manhattan. I'm kind of curious. Let me know what you guys think about that whole thing. Because I know a lot of you guys have been reading DC a lot longer than I have. I mean, a lot of you guys have knowledge on DC Comics that just blow me out of the water, no questions asked. I don't care how obscure it is. Pull it out and throw it in the comment section, because I'm curious to see what all you guys come up with. But with that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoy this video, make sure you drop a like, and yeah, I will catch you all later. Peace.